Now, the Correctional Services Department is patting itself on the back for a significant decrease in prison escapes in the last financial year. One of these successful rearrests was that, of course, of Thabo Bester. The convicted rapist was recaptured in April, 1 year after escaping from Mangaung prison. This week, another group of prisoners escaped in Nkandla and Vryheid prisons in KZN. Let's speak more about this with Correctional Services Department spokesperson Singabako Nxumalo, who joins us via our video link this morning. Great to have you on the program as always, sir. Thanks very much indeed for making time. So you say there's been a decrease in the number of prison escapes, but how many are we still talking?
A very good morning, and thank you for having us. The Department of Correctional Services appeared before the Portfolio Committee for its annual report, where we tabled yet again an unqualified audit. And this is a third year running, and we're quite pleased with that. Even more so because we're getting closer into a clean financial audit. So as a department, we've been saying there's been a great deal of progress over the years, and it is now showing. We are still not pleased that there are areas where you find that we still have to improve, like splitting of cases and overcrowding, and specifically. But when it comes to escapes, we recorded a reduction of 90 escapes compared to 117 that were recorded in the 2020-21 financial year, which is a major decrease. But as a department, we always maintain that no inmate will find it possible to escape from custody. Hence, we continuously look at our safety and security measures so that we can make it impossible for inmates to escape.
So how did these 90 people make a run for it?
There's quite a number of factors involved. And we often say you shouldn't just look at an escape incident and say, oh, something has gone horribly wrong there. You ought to look at the system in its entirety to say, what is the level of overcrowding? What's happening when it comes to gangsterism, smuggling of contrabands? I'm saying this because for an escape to happen, there's quite a lot of planning that has to go into it and a number of resources or tools that have to be used. Why do we talk about smuggling? You find that the materials being used has been smuggled in our centers. Then, which then talks to say there has been a security breach in terms of how do we search those the people coming to our facilities, be service providers or be it visitors, and also the level of vigilance by our own officials. But also it talks to the standard operating procedures. How often do you check, those grills, whether they are still intact and what inmates are up to? So we're often looking at all these. Hence, as a department, we're saying the improvements that we're recording now, they talk to the reduced number of incidents, security-related incidents that are happening in our facilities. So one inmate escaping will warrant that conduct an investigation and determine what has happened there. And that the modus operandi has been changing over the years, which then says to us we must always be up to speed and be upfront in a manner that we can preempt some of the things happening in our facilities. And what is it that the criminals out there are always employing so that they can find ways to escape from lawful custody. But for us, a major pressing point is the level of overcrowding. We presented in Parliament that when you compare to the previous financial year, we have increased the inmate population by over 13,000. We are now at 157,000 compared to 143,000 we had by then, which to us says that there is something wrong with the level of crime in this country and something has to be addressed.
Sure. I hear that, Singabako, but with respect, my question is still largely unanswered. These 90 people who made a run for it in the last financial year, how were they able to get out? Are you saying that the prisons themselves being overcrowded led to their escape?
I've said there's a number of factors involved. Some of our facilities, I find that the infrastructure is so old that inmates are able to break down some portions of it, be it cutting off window grills, or some of them they will escape from the spans, or just call them the web teams when they're out. Hence, then we talk about the standard operating procedures, the extent of vigilance that our officials, must aim at all point, being able to account for each and every inmate. So hence I've said it's all these factors at play, and then to say, how do we then preempt some of them, close these gaps? We have built even tower posts, which a number of them were written off. And we're saying, no, let's go back to that level of security, build these tower posts. But then it then says, now employ additional staff members who will man these tower posts, because the advantage that they give us is an aerial view, and they cover a bigger spectrum in terms of surveillance. So as a department, we are mindful of the damage that these escapes are causing, but there is work happening in that particular regard. Hence, the reduction in it is a plus for us. But we're also saying, these escapes also talk to other measures that criminals out there are employing, and we must always work together as security class and communities.
Absolutely. It also sounds to me, Singabako, that these criminals could have not made it out if they weren't working with other people. You know, this is not just from their own ingenuity while sitting in those cells. You also mentioned a number of times issues around smuggling that's taking place, and I imagine in some way some of these tools are smuggled into the prison so that people can make some kind of run for it. How much of your own focus is on your own officials? You know, outside of the Thabo Bester saga, where we know there must have been involvement from Correctional Services Department officials, but in these other less high-profile cases, have you been able to identify which of your officials were involved, and how have you held them accountable?
For each and every escape, we launch an investigation, and it's a thorough investigation. And it will go from how did the incident happen, the people involved, what was expected of them, until that matter being finalized. And if our official is found to be, on the wrong side, unfortunately there will be consequences. It's very painful signing a dismissal letter, but it's something that has to be done if there was wrong part from an official. But we also say, this must also act as a lesson even to others that, what is expected of you is something that, can never be compromised. And where assistance is needed, it has to be provided. Hence, even the additional staff members that we, that we deploy at our facilities, they are not at the numbers at which we want, but at least, we are able to augment, those particular figures. But I think in general, what creates an impression as if people are just escaping left, right, and center. More often you'll find reports that a number of people have escaped on their way to court, and the headline will be prisoners escape or inmates escape, when you find that those people are not even under the care of correctional services. And we'll try to correct this, and we've accepted that it's going to take time even for people to understand it. Let us rather put all our operations together. Let us work together as a security cluster in saying how to make it impossible for people to escape from DCS facilities, how to make it impossible for people to escape on their way to courts, being transported by SAPS, and other means that people will try to find. Because when there's a headline that says escape, immediately people think of correctional services.
Yeah. I'm wondering, of those who escaped, how many of them have now been rearrested? I mean, information at our disposal, and that's certainly what we've been showing our viewers, is that 90% of them have been recaptured, which means 10% are still out there. What kind of progress are we making on that front?
We never give up on a person that has escaped from lawful custody, even if it means it will take us a year or more than that. That person remains a wanted person. That person must be brought back to continue serving that sentence and must be charged from escaping from lawful custody. But what we often do, once someone has escaped, we immediately, dispatch a track and tracing team. Hence, you find that we're able to rearrest them in less than 72 hours because of the efforts that we're also putting there, but also roping in other law enforcement agencies and other local structures that you find in communities. Because you find that when a person has escaped in a particular correctional facility, the locals in that area will have clues or may have spotted that person. And we've been receiving a great deal of assistance, from such information, and we're able to effect this rearrest. So as a department, we always applaud, working together with all these structures because they do give us positive spin-offs. But getting a person within 72 hours to us is always important because each time a person is out there unlawfully so, we are worried about the damage that this person could be causing.
Absolutely. And it's on that note I was going to ask you, what were these people who are still on the run initially arrested for? Do we need to give out some kind of warning to communities?
People who often find it hard to stay in correctional facilities are your repeat offenders. And it's people who are coming in for, your short-term sentences, and they frequent our facilities. You will see that they do not want to accept or they do not want to stay and serve a sentence. And each an opportunity granted to them, they will want to jump out. And you find that there's people who are doing your housebreaking, theft. It is rare where you find someone who has committed serious offenses. Yes, we've had them, but it's very few, such as murder and rape cases. And so the department, we even said, no matter how minor the offense is, if a person has escaped, we have to be the first to issue an alert to notify the public that there is an inmate on the loose, and also to notify the victims of crime to say, in case you get any form of information, please report to us and be aware that this person is out there. Because in most cases, crime happens between people who know each other. So there's also the level of intelligence that we use to that extent. So it is not just about looking for that person, but also informing the public, because we've been assisted a lot by our communities.
Yeah, so is that the case in this instance? Like these 10% that we're speaking about, were they just involved in the robberies and those kind of crimes?
Yeah, majority of them, it's some is petty crimes, crimes of need. It's only a few where we find that it's serious offences, but also what we've also picked up that a number of them is also foreign nationals, whom is very difficult to locate once they're out there. But the case of Grahamstown is a classical example where 6 out of 7 have been recaptured. There's only one from that group that is still out there. So, but as a department, it also demonstrates the level at which we're able to rearrest those people who escape.
How many of those who are on the loose were arrested for serious crimes? Do you have that figure?
I don't have that figure right now. But for us, what is important, we're saying, irrespective of the crime that you committed, you were in our care because of a sentence that you needed to serve. If you escape before finishing that sentence, you are a wanted person, we have to bring you back.
All right, Singabako Nxumalo, thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. Appreciate your time, and hopefully, we'll be able to get to a point where there are no escapees to begin with for us to speak of a rearrest rate. But all taken, Singabako Nxumalo is a spokesperson for the Department of Correctional Services.